Alright, let's go ahead and get started. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Jeff Keller. I work for Gecko Software and work with their track and trade line of products for futures, forex, and stocks. Today we're taking a look at track and trade live futures. It's our live futures trading platform. We can place in trades directly into the charts, place in trades on all sorts of different commodities, and trading through Gecko Financial Services and Open eCry there. Let's go ahead and open up a chart, get started. If you have any questions for me as we're going through, please type those into the questions section of the GoToWebinar program, and I will answer those as they appear. If they're a little bit more in depth, I may wait until the end of the class to discuss them. But please don't be shy, write in your questions, and I will answer those when they come in. Alright, to begin, let's go ahead and open up a chart. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up into the upper right hand corner, select commodity, and then I'm going to drop down and choose which market to work with. Now, I like E-mini S&P. It's just something I've been a little bit hooked on for a while, so I'm going to stick there. I'm going to go to E-mini S&P, ES, select the contract, and then immediately it's going to be showing September 2010 contract. I'm going to go ahead and select and open. Alright, so here we have the daily E-mini S&P chart. Everything currently at the default settings. I've done no customization. In fact, I reset to the defaults before we start the webinar today. In truth, completely different setup than what I normally use. I actually go through and customize quite a bit. I really make the software my own. And I also strongly recommend to all of the clients that they do the same. The system is very easy to customize, and it gives you a lot of leeway, lots of breathing room for going through and adjusting. Now, currently, what I have on is the slow stochastic indicator down here at the bottom, which, by the way, is making the white arrows that you see in the chart. And then I also just have volume and open interest in here as well. Now, volume and open interest, I'm going to go ahead and close that. To do that, I'm just going to right-click in this window and then uncheck next to volume. Now I have just the slow stochastic. I'm going to drag this down a bit, give us a little more chart room. And I'm going to go ahead and also increase the width of my price bars, just using the ruler bar down here on the bottom. You can also use these little arrows here as well. Now, I'm doing this to make sure you can see all right in the webinar. Normally I actually want to see more price bars, but so that you can get a good view, I know you're looking at a window within a window, I'm going to go ahead and make these as big as I can. Also, just my own personal preference, and I like the way that it looks, I'm going to also switch over to candlestick style price bars. Now to do that, I'm going to right click in the chart, price bar type, and select candle. And now I'm actually looking at a candlestick option. I'm going to turn on proportional width, keep them thin, sharp. Alright, so now candles on a daily chart, and I'm working with just a slow stochastic. Now, as a base, this is what I normally work with. This will now be my new default daily setting. To do this, I'm going to right click in the chart, select Save Settings as my default, and now anytime I open up a daily chart, it will open with just a slow stochastic. It will have the candlestick price bars, and it will appear just the way that I like it. Now, by all means, when you go through, when you customize, when you really start to make the software your own, save your defaults as you're going through. A lot of clients will go through and make adjustments to their settings. Say they right-click in the chart, go to Chart Overlays, and we'll say Moving Averages. Moving Averages is very popular. You could say it's almost a staple technical indicator that's been around forever, so ever since it's just we're using paper. Now, Moving Averages, by default, they are a 5 and a 10 period. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the moving average preferences. Pretty easy to do, actually. In the bottom right of the chart, see the little abbreviation for MA. Because I have it turned on the chart, I'll see an abbreviation for that chart overlay in the bottom right. Left-clicking on this once will immediately open the Preferences tab, which is located right here. And then it will also open up the preferences for that indicator, in this case, moving averages. Now, moving averages makes red buy-sell arrows when the moving average crosses over. And we can see that by default, just a 5 and a 10 period moving average. Now, Preferences tab, beautiful thing. A couple different reasons why. First of all, any change that you make within the chart, it will be updated immediately. So right now in the Preferences tab, I'm using a 10 period and 20 period. Immediately in the chart window, my moving averages update. The location of my buy-sell arrows update. It will be applied as soon as I select it. I can also change the style. I use EMAs, exponential moving averages, instead of simple. And I normally will offset just a little bit to try and get exactly what I'm looking for. There's actually more what I'm looking for. So here I have an 8 EMA, 8 period EMA with a -2 displacement. Then I have an average 2 period 20. It's not going to move my arrows, but it will move my lines so I can get a closer look at an initial crossover. And then also use the buy-sell arrows as kind of a confirmation. Just something I like to do. Alright, so let's say this is what I like to use, which it is, actually. Select Save as my default. As soon as I select Save as my default, I don't have to set this again. I mean, really, select Save as my default, and once your preferences are done, you don't have to reapply in the future. If you want to make this the default chart overlay to appear with each new chart, right-click in the chart. Save Settings as my default, and then anytime I open up a new daily chart, it's going to have those settings inside of it. Now, important thing to note is that we have lots of different time frames available to work with, and different time frames can have different settings. Right now we're on a daily chart. If I switch to a 60-minute, notice that my price bars, they're not candle anymore. That's because Candlesticks is a chart preference. Specifically, per time frame, they have their own options. And in this case, my 60 minutes still uses open, high, low, close, price bar type. If I select candle and select Save as my default, now if I ever open up a daily or ever open up a 60-minute, it will have candlesticks. So you set them per time frame, and by doing that, you can have more customization per time frame. Because I don't just use the same settings for a 60-minute that I use for a daily. I don't. I customize for the time frame that I'm using. So just something to keep in mind there. Alright, now, going back to the Preferences tab. This tab, again, located right here, it will display whatever you select, or whatever you selected last. If you have this tab open, and you click once inside the chart window, all of a sudden 60-minute chart preferences. What if you click once in the slow stochastic window? Now all of a sudden you have all the slow stochastic preferences. If you have some drawn tools on the chart, like a Fibonacci ruler, which actually might work here, by the way, and maybe you even have in an Andrew's pitchfork for good measure. It's a spot I'd like. Terrible placement. But once you get it where you want, all you have to do is select the drawn tool in the chart, and then you will immediately see the preferences for that tool over on the right side. Click once on the Fibonacci ruler. Here's all the preferences for the Fibonacci ruler. If I decide I want to add in the 78.6, 23.6 percentages, they'll be displayed over on the right as well. So as soon as you select it, it will show up in the Preferences tab. As soon as you make a change in the Preferences tab, it will be updated in the chart. Especially useful when you're going through and working with technical indicators. Like, for example, let's turn on, how about the MACD? Moving Average Convergence Divergence, MACD, very common, very popular technical indicator, shown right here in Add Indicator window, MACD. As soon as I have that turned on, and because it was the last thing I selected, it's now shown at the bottom of the screen and inside my Preferences tab as well. Now, the MACD is going to be generating the steel blue arrows, okay? So little off-color blue arrows in the chart window. Let's say we want to adjust, we want to customize. We can say that we want to use a trigger period, or we can say that we just want to use the crossover from the zero axis, which actually isn't too bad. Say that instead of using just regular trigger, we want to use a MACD with Bollinger Bands. And every single time you click, the MACD will update and the preferences will update. Also very useful when you want to fine-tune your periods. You can go through and start changing your periods one at a time until you see the arrows in the location that you like. And of course, at any time, select Save as my default, and then it will be that way from then on. Or even select TNT default and toggle back. One thing I like to do is look at the default compared to my settings. For instance, I'm going to turn off the MACD, and I'm even going to turn off the slow stochastic. Let's take a look at my moving averages again. Select the little MA in the bottom right, and here, this is my default, 8 with a -2 displacement for an EMA, and then we also have the 20 period EMA as well. Right now, these are my default settings. What if I want to compare against a 5 and 10 regular period? TNT defaults. All of a sudden, now I'm back to the regular TNT default settings. Alright, that's nice. Let's go back to my default. Now I'm back to the 8 and -2, and the 20 period, and the chart updates. So you can actually toggle back and forth. So if you have, the, I guess you could say industry standard, like what we have for technical indicators like the slow stochastic. I mean, these settings are what you're going to find in most programs. You can have the 14, 3, and 3. Look at the chart and get an idea if that's what you want. While at the same time, you can toggle back and forth between maybe your own preference, something that you personally work with. We'll say that this is my preference for the slow stochastic, which it is, by the way. But I'll say Save as my default. And then I can compare my arrow locations against the TNT default arrow locations and just quickly switch back and forth. Easy way to go through and do that. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and switch that back to the default. I'm also going to resave that as my default. And let's go back into the chart and take a look. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other chart preferences. One in particular that I'd like to show clients right away, just a little tidbit that I know usually is asked fairly early when opening up the software, is how to work with different time frames. Now, currently in Track and Trade, we start off with a default of 1, 5, 15, 30, 60-minute time frames, and then day, week, and month. Now, these are just the defaults that come with the program. You can actually change which time frames you use. Let's say that a 1 minute is too little. Maybe just your website getting eaten up, just too small of an increment, and that you want to swap it out for a 2-hour chart instead. What you need to do is just need to go into your chart preferences. To do that, I'm going to switch back over to the day, right-click in the chart, and go to My Chart Preferences. Or another way to do that is just open up your Preferences tab and click once into the chart. And over here on the right side, you'll see a section for chart tabs. These are specifically which intraday chart you're working with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my 5-minute, make it my 5-minute, my 1 minute chart, make it my 5-minute. I'm going to add in a 15. I'm not going to use a 60, or excuse me, a 30-minute chart. I'm going to use a 60. And I'm going to make a 120-minute for a 2-hour chart and a 240-minute for a 4-hour chart. Now look in the bottom left. All the tabs have updated to be 5, 15, 60, 2-hour, 4-hour, day, week, month. These are now my new custom settings. I just select Save as my default, and any new contracts I open up will have those settings in place. And I can also go through and now toggle between those different time frames. So you can go through and change what is there by default. And then of course you can also go through and customize what settings per time frame. 5-minute chart, I like Candlesticks Save as my default. Once it's done, never have to do it again. Anytime I go to a 5-minute chart again in the future, it has my candlesticks just the way that I like it. Alright, now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other options, other technical indicators we have in the program. I want to show you some of the more advanced systems in particular, and ones that are basically, well, for lack of a better way of putting it, just some of the best, I guess you could say. What I'm going to do right now is I'm on the daily chart. I'm going to turn off my moving averages, and I'm going to turn off slow stochastic for now as well. And I'm going to instead add in seasonals. The seasonals indicator is actually one of my favorites, especially for trading futures in particular, because it's going to be showing me these seasonal trends. I really like that. A particular focus in my case for seasonal markets like grains. You know, they're planted at the same time, they're harvested at the same time, they have risks of being damaged by weather all at the same time or some kind of disease, so they tend to move in a seasonal manner. Ironically, some markets like gold also do the similar things. Gold has a tendency to trend up towards the holiday season, towards the Christmas season. If you were to right-click, go to Add-on Indicator window, and turn on the seasonal, you actually normally will see a seasonal trend where it starts to go up near the end. So it's definitely something to take a look at. Alright, now, seasonal indicator actually very popular, especially for commodities. I'm going to turn this on in the E-mini S&P, although right now, considering how everything's been going, probably not a seasonal trend to look at right now. It's been going crazy. But I want to show you the indicator and give you an idea of how it works. The seasonal indicator is actually going to go through and check the seasonal trend through the historical contract data. In this case, we're looking at 10 and 15 years of seasonal trend data. And right here, the red line is actually going to be showing us, you know, on average over the last 10, 15 years, has it trended up or has it trended down at this time of year? It actually goes per price per day. I'll go through and show you all that history. I like it for weekly charts as well, and the monthly also. I like to go through and look at all that information. Now, seasonals, very powerful tool, mostly popular with grains or even some of the metals because they do tend to actually have a seasonal trend, which is surprising, but that really does. You can go through and customize it quite a bit. Trend 1 is at 10 years, Trend 2 is at 15 years. Might want to adjust that down a bit. We'll say 10 years and 5 years instead. You can say whether or not you want the blue to fill in the background because it is just using the trend. You can say whether you want the entire contract or just the last 12 months. You can scale it for where you're going. One important thing to note is that seasonals goes into the future. You're not just going to be looking back at the past and saying, okay, Looks like over the past it did what it